Good morning, afternoon, evening, night, whenever you're watching this, welcome back to the Mr. Sinn channel. Today, geographers, we are going to review all of the major concepts that you need to know from Unit 3 of AP Human Geography. Now, before watching this review video, make sure you get the study guide, which can be found in my ultimate review packet. It goes along with the video and will make sure that you remember all of the major concepts in this unit. When you get the study guide, don't forget to check out the rest of the packet as well. The packet has unit review videos for each unit, practice quizzes, study guides, answer keys, full practice AP exams, FRQ resources, important vocab lists, exclusive videos, and other resources to help you get an A in your class and a 5 on the national exam. Now, to start the unit off, we have to talk about culture, which is complex. We can see that there is no perfect definition for a person's culture. However, when looking at culture, we can see that culture is made up of material culture and non-material culture. Material culture consists of physical objects, artifacts, or items that hold significance to individuals or society as a whole, while non-material culture refers to the intangible elements of culture, such as an individual's ideas, beliefs, values, languages, and customs. Together, material and non-material culture contribute to the formation of a society's culture. For instance, take a traditional Japanese tea ceremony. The ceremony itself embodies a number of key cultural values and beliefs. The material culture associated with the ceremony includes a range of physical objects, such as the tea utensils, the tea room, and the tea itself. Each item is carefully chosen and crafted to fit a specific aesthetic and invoke a certain experience, while the non-material culture surrounding the ceremony can be seen with the rules and the procedures that the ceremony follows, such as how a person holds the tea bowl or the way a person greets someone. These rules illustrate different social norms and reinforce a sense of order and harmony within the ceremony. We can also see the concept of the tea ceremony itself as an example of non-material culture, since the act of preparing and serving tea is seen as a form of hospitality that reflects the host's respect. Now, when looking at culture, we also need to talk about subculture. A subculture is a group of people within a larger society or culture who share a distinct set of beliefs, values, and practices that are different from the main culture. For example, your school probably has a school culture that is unique to your school. But if we look at each individual grade or even each individual class, we will probably find there are unique cultures that exist within the different grades and classrooms. So we can see that culture comprises a society's shared practices, technologies, attitudes, and behaviors. Now, cultures around the world often fall under two broad categories: modern culture and folk culture. Modern culture, also known as pop culture, typically originates in economically developed regions or countries and spreads through hierarchical diffusion. It prioritizes individualism and personal achievement, is diverse, and constantly evolving. Folk culture, on the other hand, is more homogeneous and diffuses through relocation diffusion. It places emphasis on community and collective experiences, with family and religion playing a central role in daily life. Unlike modern culture, folk culture aims to preserve traditional practices and often resists modern trends. Additionally, there are also indigenous cultures, which are typically tied to a specific geographic region. Indigenous cultures often have a strong emphasis on community and traditional values, and may have unique languages, art forms, and spiritual beliefs that are passed down through generations. Today, folk cultures and indigenous cultures are at risk of being replaced by modern culture, which is one of the reasons why some cultures will resist modern technology, as it tends to promote modern culture. Now, when cultures come into contact with each other, we can observe that people tend to adopt either an ethnocentric or cultural relativist perspective. Ethnocentrism is when a person views another culture through their own cultural lens. The individual will evaluate and judge the culture by using their own cultural standards. Cultural relativism, on the other hand, is when an individual views and evaluates another culture by that culture's standards. Notice that the individual does not judge the culture based on their own cultural standards. Think of cultural relativism as you putting yourself in someone else's shoes. Okay, so now that we have talked about different cultures, let's explore different ways in which we can see cultures reflected in society. When looking at how culture is represented in society, we are going to look at the cultural landscape. The cultural landscape refers to the visible human modifications of the natural environment, which includes different religious practices, linguistic characteristics, infrastructure designs, agricultural practices, architectural styles, and land use patterns, which, remember, is how humans change and modify the land for various activities and purposes. Different architectural styles reflect different cultural values in the cultural landscape. Traditional architecture often uses resources from the local area and incorporates the local culture and resources of the area into the design design of the building. While modern architecture often focuses on function over design, and often does not seek to incorporate the local culture into the design of the building. One other type of architecture we can see shape the cultural landscape is postmodern architecture, which is a style of architecture that strives to create a unique look that incorporates local culture into the design of the building. The cultural landscape is not just shaped by the current society, but has also been shaped by historical events, economic and political systems, and social norms that exist in the area. One way we can examine the cultural landscape is to observe evidence of sequent occupancy, which is how cultures over time have impacted a geographic location. Essentially, it illustrates how people have left their mark on a particular area throughout history. By examining sequent occupancy, we can gain insight into how cultures have influenced and shaped a place over time, creating a unique cultural landscape and a distinct sense of place. Lastly, we can see that the cultural landscape can reflect cultural beliefs and identities in a variety of different ways. By analyzing the cultural landscape of an area, we can not only gain a better understanding of how a culture and people have shaped the region, but also gain insights into the values of the society. In areas where traditional attitudes towards gender dominate, we can see land use patterns reflect those values. For instance, cultures where women are expected to stay at home and take care of domestic duties may have more residential areas designated with amenities and facilities that cater to their needs, while commercial and industrial areas may be designed to cater to the needs of men. Additionally, neighborhoods can reflect cultural beliefs and identities as well. Ethnic neighborhoods, for example, may have distinct architecture and cultural landmarks that reflect the traditions and customs of the community. Overall, analyzing the cultural landscape of an area provides us a deeper understanding of how culture influences the built environment and can help us gain insight into the values and priorities of a society. Now, when observing a culture and a place, it is common to discuss the various human and physical characteristics that comprise a place. Human characteristics may include demographic data such as birth rates, age distributions, languages spoken, and religions practiced, while physical characteristics may include natural features like rivers, mountains, vegetation, climate, and also man-made structures. Geographers frequently analyze both the physical and human characteristics of an area to gain insight into the distinct cultural patterns that exist in a place. Factors like language, religion, and ethnicity all shape not only the cultural landscape, but also help create a unique sense of place. Different religious institutions, for instance, may incorporate unique architectural designs into their places of worship, such as mosques, churches, temples, or synagogues, which further contribute to the cultural landscape and sense of place. A sense of place refers to a strong emotional connection or perception a person may have of a specific geographic area. This connection is often unique to an individual or group and can be shaped by personal experiences, as well as various human and physical characteristics of a place. Shared community and cultural identities, distinct dialects and accents, ethnic traditions like food and music, and land use patterns can also all contribute to a sense of place. Additionally, a sense of place can be influenced by the local architecture, the local history, societal interactions, and all of this is just scratching the surface. If a place lacks a sense of place, it may experience placelessness, which is when a place does not invoke any strong response from an individual. This often happens due to the place lacking unique characteristics and an identity. Now, we can also see how regional patterns of language, religion, and ethnicity can lead to a concept known as placemaking. This is when a community comes together and transforms a public space for different activities or events. Placemaking promotes community and social interaction between different people in a society. It can range from anything such as a community garden to community events such as fairs or festivals. Today, we can also see the influence of global trends. As the world continues to become more connected, we will see a global cultural landscape form. This is especially true in urban areas, which often result in a more homogenized landscape being created, all of which can lead to unique cultural practices and traditions to start to become replaced by the dominant global trend. Now, in looking at different places, we can also see the impact of different centripetal and centrifugal forces. Centripetal forces are things that bring people together and promote unity, such as a shared history, common language, and similar cultural values and beliefs. These forces often result in a closer community feel and a stronger sense of identity. On the other hand, centrifugal forces are things that divide and force people apart. These forces may include significant cultural differences, multiple languages spoken, ethnic and religious divisions, or other cultural factors that put up barriers between people, resulting in communities to become fragmented. Now, if you do need help in understanding how culture impacts the cultural landscape and how regional patterns pattern, shape a place, you can go to my ultimate review packet, where I've created and included extra resources and videos to help you practice these concepts. So we've been talking about how cultures shape the cultural landscape, but we also have to talk about how different cultures diffuse. When talking about diffusion, we are talking about the spread of a cultural element, item, group of people, or phenomenon from one place to another. We can break diffusion down into two broad categories: relocation diffusion and expansion diffusion. Relocation diffusion involves the physical movement of a culture or group of people from one place to another. As a result of the physical movement of people, the hearth of the cultural trait tends to shrink as the trait and the people carrying it move out of the area, and no new individuals take on the trait. Remember, a hearth is the location in which an idea, culture, belief, or item originated. An example of relocation diffusion would be the Amish, who originated in Europe but began to migrate to the United States around the 1700s to escape persecution. Originally settling around Pennsylvania, the Amish eventually started to migrate west in order to find cheaper land and avoid urban sprawl and the influence of modern culture. Expansion diffusion, on the other hand, refers to the spread of a cultural trait or group of people from one place to another through person-to-person contact. This type of diffusion involves the addition of more people who adopt and practice the cultural trait, resulting in the trait spreading throughout a geographic area. With expansion diffusion, we can see that the hearth of the cultural trait tends to remain strong, as the trait is not leaving the hearth, but rather diffusing outwards from it. Now, expansion diffusion can happen in a variety of different ways. The first type of expansion diffusion is contagious diffusion, where the spread of a cultural trait happens in almost all directions, without regard to social class, religion, or other cultural factors. When thinking about this type of diffusion, think about a viral video or meme. Before you know it, almost everyone has seen it and is talking about it. The next type of expansion diffusion is hierarchical diffusion, which happens through systems that typically center around some form of power. This can occur through a top-down approach, such as when fashion trends originate in global cities and then diffuse to other major urban areas before reaching smaller settlements. We can also see hierarchical diffusion occur with new ideas or products that diffuse through social media influencers and their audience. For example, Mr. Beast, the largest influencer on YouTube, can share his ideas and videos with his followers, who then spread them to their friends, who then spread them to their friends. Notice that in this example, the information is not going to everyone at once. It is following a structure, starting with the person in power and moving down. Unlike contagious diffusion, information is not being diffused to all people. One other type of hierarchical diffusion that you'll want to be familiar with is reverse hierarchical diffusion. This occurs when diffusion starts at the bottom of a power structure and spreads upwards instead of starting at the top and working its way down. For example, a business that starts in a small town and expands to the surrounding region, eventually reaching larger urban areas. The final type of expansion diffusion is stimulus diffusion, where an idea, trait, or innovation spreads from one culture or place to another, but the original idea or trait is adapted to better fit the local culture. Here we can see that the fundamental concept of the trait remains the same. However, as diffusion occurs, the trait takes on different aspects of the environment or the culture to which it is spreading. For instance, McDonald's has diffused around the world. We can see that McDonald's menus and store layouts are often changed to adapt to the local tastes and preferences of the area, but McDonald's itself is still McDonald's. To make sure you're better understanding the different types of diffusion, pause this video and complete the next practice problems in your study guide. If you're not sure of any of the answers, you can always go back to the Ultimate Review packet, where you can find more exclusive videos and resources to help you with these concepts. I've also included an extra practice quiz that solely focuses on diffusion to help you prepare for your test or the AP exam, since diffusion does come up more frequently on tests. Alright, so now that we understand the different types of diffusion, let's review the different historical causes of diffusion. We can look at the impact that colonialism and imperialism had on the diffusion of different religions, languages, cultures, and people around the world. Newly established colonies saw increased immigration as people emigrated from their home country to the colony. Colonies were not isolated and interacted with the local community, resulting in colonizing settlers and colonized locals being influenced by one another. So we can see that this relocation diffusion eventually led to expansion diffusion, as languages, religions, foods, clothing, and other customs were exchanged between different people. For instance, we can see that the English language became a lingua franca thanks to the influence of the British Empire, which helped spread English and Christianity throughout its empire, enabling people from different linguistic backgrounds to communicate effectively. Remember, a lingua franca is a language that is used as a common means of communication between people who speak different languages. Oftentimes, missionaries relocated through relocation diffusion to colonies in order to spread the word of God. Christianity was brought to Africa and South America by European colonizers and was able to diffuse during the colonial era. We can also look at the impact that Spanish settlers had in the Caribbean or French settlers had in Louisiana during the colonial era, where the migration of people from Europe to the Americas eventually led to the creation of a new ethnic group that became known as the Creole people. This process of two cultures coming together to create a new third culture is referred to as creolization. We can see creolization when looking at the first Spanish settlers in the Caribbean or French settlers in Louisiana. Over the course of generations, they no longer consider themselves to be part of their original culture. We can also observe how trade and commerce have reshaped the world and contributed to the diffusion of different traits. Events such as the Columbian Exchange reshaped both the Americas and Europe as new crops, animals, and diseases were exchanged between the two regions. As a result of this exchange, Europe experienced a population boom due to a more stable food source. But unfortunately, at the same time, we also saw the deaths of millions of indigenous people in America due to European diseases diffusing. We can also see diffusion occur with the triangular trade, which happened between the Americas, Europe, and Africa, resulting in the forced migration of over 12 million enslaved people, leading to significant cultural and demographic changes in Africa and the Americas. Additionally, the triangular trade further facilitated the diffusion of different religions, cultures, languages, but also created a diaspora. A diaspora refers to the dispersion or scattering of people, usually referring to a specific ethnic or cultural group, from their original homeland to different parts of the world. One other example we could look at is the Silk Road, which we can see led to the diffusion of different cultures, ideas, goods, and inventions across Asia, the Middle East, Northern Africa, and Europe. Alright, so now that we have looked at historical causes of diffusion, it's time to talk about contemporary causes. Advancements in technology, globalization, and increased rates of urbanization have all continued to break down barriers between people, making it easier than ever to connect with others across society and the world. As countries develop economically, they experience increased rates of urbanization, resulting in a growing number of people moving from rural areas to urban areas, leading to the diffusion of diverse lifestyles and ideas through the interactions among people from different backgrounds. Technological advancements have also allowed people to connect with individuals worldwide, countering the effects of distance decay and leading to time-space convergence, concepts we last talked about in our Unit 1 video. Apps like TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, or sites like YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter allow for people around the world to quickly communicate and share ideas. All of these different social media platforms allow for the spread of viral memes, stories, trends, and much more. The internet and advancements in technology and communication have continued to reduce barriers to diffusion and have allowed for the spread of different ideas, people, and cultures around the world. For example, one of the reasons why companies like McDonald's, Starbucks, and KFC are so popular is due to globalization. These companies operate across the globe, which allows them to expand their customer base and business. Nowadays, supply chains, businesses, economies, governments, and individuals are all interdependent and impacted by a global culture and community. Oftentimes, diffusion here happens through hierarchical diffusion. New ideas and trends tend to initially emerge in global or world cities, which not only affect their immediate residents and the surrounding regions, but also influence other parts of the world as well. This new globalized world has also created new political alliances, as countries today are more interconnected than ever before. Countries must collaborate with each other to ensure not only their own security, but also conduct research to develop treatments for diseases, resolve international issues, and fulfill the needs and desires of their citizens. Speaking of countries and a global community, we can also see diffusion today happen from the military. For example, the United States has military bases in Central America, the Caribbean, Europe, and the Korean Peninsula, and that's just scratching the surface. These bases not only diffuse American culture and English, but also allow for American troops to learn more about local cultures as well, and bring their experiences back to the United States. Speaking of English, we can see that the internet, social media platforms, and modern entertainment, such as movies and music, all allow for English to continue to diffuse around the world. As globalization and modern technology continue to spread modern culture, an increasing number of people adopt English as a primary or secondary language. Unfortunately, this trend also results in the gradual disappearance of many indigenous and folk languages and cultures. This is just one of the reasons why many folk cultures and indigenous cultures are resistant to some modern technology. Now, sometimes this interconnected world in which we live in can result in cultural divergence or convergence to occur. Cultural divergence refers refers to the process by which individuals become separated from different aspects of their culture. This can happen due to a variety of different factors, such as a person being geographically isolated from the rest of their culture, or due to a person taking on different cultural practices and customs. Cultural convergence, on the other hand, refers to a process by which cultures become more similar as different cultures come together to start and form one mass culture. This can happen due to increased communication and interaction between different cultures. Right, now the next part of this unit is really easy to get overwhelmed by. However, I want to highlight that you don't need to know every aspect of every faith and also every aspect of every language. The focus here is on how the religions and languages diffused around the world and how they impact the cultural landscape. Starting with religion, we can see we have two main categories: universalizing religions and ethnic religions. Universalizing religions are religions that seek to appeal to all people. These religions seek to expand and spread their teachings and beliefs to as many people as possible. Oftentimes, these religions will expand through expansion diffusion, but can also spread through relocation diffusion as well. Examples of universalizing religions would include Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, and Sikhism. Christianity is a monotheistic religion based on the teachings of Jesus Christ. Its hearth is located in the Eastern Mediterranean and is one of the Abrahamic religions. Christianity is the world's largest religion and has diffused around the world in a variety of different ways. During the colonial era, missionaries relocated to different colonies around the world. Once the missionaries arrived in the colonies, they often set up boarding schools and churches to start converting local people and spread the faith through hierarchical diffusion. Christianity has shaped cultural landscapes around the world with their churches, holidays, traditions, and gospel music, which is often incorporated into different popular music today. Our next universalizing religion is Islam, which is another Abrahamic religion that has its hearth located in the Eastern Mediterranean. Islam is a monotheistic religion and is traced back to a single founder, Muhammad. After Muhammad passed, the faith split between the Shia and the Sunni. The split was over who should lead the faith. Both sects have the Quran as their holy book and follow the 5 pillars of Islam to help guide their daily lives. Islam diffused across the globe through conquest, trade, and missionary work. Today we can see how Islam shapes cultural landscapes around the world through the creation of mosques, which incorporate intricate geometric designs, and also by the celebration of different holidays and different traditions. Our next universalizing religion is Buddhism, which originated in South Asia. Unlike our previous 2 religions, Buddhism does not have a set deity. Buddhism is based around the belief that anyone can achieve salvation by following the 4 noble truths and the middle path, which will allow a person to break free of their material needs. Prior to Buddhism, the predominant religion in the region was Hinduism, which had connections with the caste system and did not preach salvation for everyone. This allowed Buddhism to diffuse and become popular with people. One of the ways in which Buddhism diffused was due to relocation diffusion, as missionaries would relocate to other countries and regions to spread the faith. Buddhism also spread through extensive trade routes that linked India to other parts of Asia, and by adapting to other faiths in the regions to fit the local culture. For example, in China, Buddhism diffused through stimulus diffusion, as it adapted and incorporated elements of Taoism and Confucianism in order to blend traditions and increase its diffusion. Today we can see Buddhism shape the cultural landscape with the creation of pagodas, which are temples that often serve as important cultural and religious landmarks. Our last universalizing religion is Sikhism, which is a monotheistic religion that originated in the Punjab region. Sikhism believes that all human beings can achieve spiritual liberation through meditation, self-discipline, and service to others. Sikhs believe in 10 gurus who help guide Sikhs in their daily lives. These gurus preach the word of God and help create their holy book. Sikhs are known for their distinct appearances, as well as having 5 articles of faith, which they are to carry with them at all times. Sikhs diffused through relocation diffusion. However, their diffusion was limited due to being located in between Hinduism, Islam, and Buddhism. Today, Sikhs shape the cultural landscape through their unique cuisine, which has become popular around the world, and also through religious buildings such as the Golden Temple, and through their style of dress. Next, we have ethnic religions, which are primarily centered around a specific cultural or ethnic group, and often stay in one location. These religions do not try and convert other people, and often diffuse through relocation diffusion. Examples of ethnic religions include Hinduism and Judaism. Hinduism is one of the world's oldest religions, and is predominantly located in India, where it originated. Hinduism believes in karma and dharma. The Vedas are its sacred text, and interestingly enough, we do not know the exact founder of the faith. As Hinduism spread throughout the region, we can see it diffuse through stimulus diffusion. It would spread between different faiths, taking on some aspects of the traditional faiths and eventually replacing them. We can also see diffusion occurred due to the migration of different people, which would be a form of relocation diffusion. Today, we can see Hinduism shape the cultural landscape through the creation of Hindu temples and through its emphasis on rituals and traditions, which end up shaping the cultural identity of Hindus. The next ethnic religion is Judaism, which originated in the Eastern Mediterranean and is another Abrahamic religion. Unlike the other Abrahamic religions, Judaism is closely linked to a sense of shared history, culture, and traditions that all connect back to the Jewish people. This religion has three main branches: Reform, Orthodox, and Conservative. Throughout history, we have seen Judaism diffuse by relocation diffusion. This has been mainly due to war and persecution. Today, the Jewish population considers Israel to be their homeland and also a Jewish state. The influence of Judaism on the cultural landscape can be seen throughout the establishment of synagogues, the wearing of religious attire, and also by the observation of different holidays and customs. So that was just a quick look at the different universalizing and ethnic religions that you need to know for this class. Now we are going to change gears and talk about language. Starting with the earliest form of a language, we encounter what is known as a proto-language. Often this requires going back in time before written records were kept. From there, we can move up to a language family, which is a group of languages that share a common ancestry. It's similar to how species in biology have a common ancestor. Within a language family, we can find language branches and also groups. A language branch is a subdivision of a language family and consists of a group of languages that are closely related and have evolved from a common ancestral background. While a language group, on the other hand, is made up of different languages that are part of a language branch and share similar vocabulary and grammar. For example, we can look at Indo-European as a language family. Here we can also see examples of language branches and also language groups. Now, one thing we can notice when it comes to languages is that as you move around a large geographic area, you often will encounter different dialects, which are regional variances that occur in the form of a language that are based on the local culture. Dialects can be differences in spelling, vocabulary, or pronunciation of certain words. For example, I'm from Minnesota and we drink pop, not soda. I also have been told by my wonderful YouTube comment section that I pronounce agriculture as agriculture, and that when I say milk, it sounds like milk. These are just a couple examples of a dialect. Sometimes regional differences are so distinct that we could see the formation of an isogloss, which is a boundary that is based on linguistic differences. Now, if you're following along in your study guide, you will notice that the next question does not have any room for an answer. The other aspects of languages that you need to review is the hearts for the different language families. In order to value your time and to try and keep these videos as efficient and short as possible, I have created a separate review document to help you with the different language hearts. And I've also included some tips for remembering them. All right, we have made it to the final part of Unit 3, which is all about the effects of diffusion. When cultures and peoples from different regions or backgrounds interact, we can usually observe a few different outcomes. We could see assimilation occur, which is when an individual or group of people adopt the cultural norms and practices of a dominant group in society. Unfortunately, this may occur at the expense of their own cultural identity. As a result, the minority culture often adopts the dominant culture, leading to the loss of their original culture. For example, we saw this happen in the United States with boarding schools that were set up to forcibly assimilate American Indians into the American culture. Kids would go to school and not be allowed to speak their own language or wear their traditional clothes. The goal was to forcibly assimilate the children into the American lifestyle. We can also observe the phenomenon of acculturation, where an individual or group adopts and adapts certain cultural traits of another culture. Unlike assimilation, acculturation does not lead to the loss of the original culture. Instead, the culture is modified as it incorporates some elements from the other culture while retaining different aspects of its original identity. For instance, many people worldwide wear modern clothes such as jeans, but still consume their traditional food and practice their original cultural traditions. Another thing that we can observe happen when diffusion occurs is syncretism. This is when two or more cultures evolve or change over time in a similar manner, but remain culturally distinct. For example, Sikhism started in India and consisted of different elements from both Hinduism and Islam. However, over time, Sikhism developed into its own religion. This is an example of syncretism because the two cultures, in this case Hinduism and Islam, were blended together to form the Sikh religion. Over time, they evolved in a similar manner but remained culturally distinct. Hinduism and Islam remained true to their fundamental belief system, but now we have the Sikh religion as well, which has its own belief system that has aspects of both faiths. Whenever cultural traits or people diffuse, they also may encounter cultural resistance, which can arise from a variety of different factors. Cultural barriers may pose a challenge to the diffusion of specific traits. For instance, if a community is highly religious and opposes certain practices, like the use of contraceptives, contraceptives, it is unlikely that that practice will become accessible. Differences in languages can also be a hindrance to diffusion, since it can reduce the access to the information or trait being diffused. Additionally, we can see cultural resistance may emerge from individuals who fear losing their way of life, or due to negative stereotypes or prejudices against the incoming culture or trait. Traditionally, diffusion used to be limited due to geographic factors, such as mountains, rivers, or oceans. However, thanks to advancements in technology and communication, it is now easier than ever to connect with people around the world. Today, we can see that most of the obstacles to diffusion are often political, economic, or cultural. One last effect from diffusion that we can see is multiculturalism, which is when a society has a large diversity of cultures that coexist within the society. Multiculturalism seeks to create a society where people of different linguistic, religious, and cultural backgrounds can all exist together. This often happens due to immigration. Countries like the United States and Canada would be examples of multicultural countries. Woo! All right, and just like that, another unit review video is done. Now you know the drill. Time to check your study guide answers in the ultimate review pack. Then when you're done with that, go take the Unit 3 practice quiz. And don't forget to go over the other exclusive resources and videos to help you not only get an A in your class, but a 5 on that national exam. As always, I'm Mr. Sinn. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time online.